Hello and good morning in Europe. This is the Pacific Grand Prix and you're watching it live on Eurosport. John Watson and Allard Kalf, and a race that will start in about 13 minutes time. And you're watching Nicola Larini standing in for Jean Alesi. And John, it's 26 degrees in Ida at the Tanaka International Circuit. And that is probably what the drivers didn't want, because it's going to be a physical race.
Well, with that kind of temperature, I think most of them would have been happy to be at the beach with a bucket and spade. But they're stuck here at Tanaka International. They've got 83 grueling laps ahead of them. We're going to have pit stops by the gross, I think, because while no one is openly saying what they're planning on doing, certainly the recommendation that Goodyear have given us is that expect a minimum of 2 stops per car, and possibly 3 is going to be the average. And there may well be somebody who finds they've got a spare set of tyres lurking that are going to be that little bit better, and they may make 4. Now, the reason behind all this is the nature of the circuit, the horsepower Grand Prix cars are generating, and the fact that there isn't any traction control, or so we're led to believe anyway, this year, as we've seen in previous seasons. And it's just simply that the performance of the tyre is being overweighed by the level of grip, plus the amount of energy going into those particularly rear tyres. So expect to see a minimum of 2 stops per team, and more likely 3, and a friendly wave from Rubens Barrichello as he clambers aboard. And man in the points in Brazil, 4th place and 3 points, and hungry for more.
Well, if we have a look at the grid for this Pacific Grand Prix, John on pole position for the 64th time in his career, it's Ayrton Senna. On the right, on the left-hand side of our screen, is Michael Schumacher. And although the left-hand side of the circuit is supposed to be the cleaner side of the circuit, because that's where the cars are driving, that is where pole position is, Ayrton Senna tried to get it to the other side, because on the right-hand side there's supposed to be more rubber down from a dragster that's been practicing out there. So Senna tried to get pole position to the inside, but they said, no way, you're on the outside.
In the old days, one was allowed to choose where you wanted to have your pole position. These things are now determined in higher authorities than that of the driver. But he still has got certainly a length advantage over Schumacher. That is the privileged pole position awards you. So we have just to wait and see. But, you know, the battle of psychology that's been going on between the two teams and between Senna and Schumacher, that's just adding to it. And I'm quite certain Schumacher feels, well, I'm on the more ideal starting line. I'm not quite as far up as Senna. Well, we will know very shortly what the outcome of that little difference of views is regarding starting position, because whoever gets into that first corner first, certainly up until the first pit stop, ought to be able to control the outcome of the inaugural Pacific Grand Prix.
Then we go to the second row of the grid, while we look at the third row with Gerhard Berger instantly. Damon Hill and Mika Häkkinen. Hill in 3rd, Häkkinen in 4th, and Mika Häkkinen, John, a man who's left foot braking in his twin pedal McLaren, and reckons there 5 points on this circuit he can overtake people.
Well, when Martin Brundle, who is Häkkinen's teammate, said there are 3, I was somewhat sceptical. And I don't know whether Mika is trying to sort of become the joker in the pack, or whether he really believes it. But having watched all around the circuit over 3 days of running, I would like to know whether the other 2 spots he considers are possibilities. Now, Mika, of course, is able to brake with his left foot. He doesn't have to think about it. It's an automatic reaction. And it may well be he sees a couple of spots where he, if he is sufficiently close, has got the opportunity to dive down the inside. But a dive is what it's going to be. And I'm not quite sure whether the car that he is going to pass will be aware that Häkkinen might well consider that particular spot on the circuit a realistic overtaking one.
Third row of the grid, Gerhard Berger and Martin Brundle, both experienced Grand Prix drivers, and Martin Brundle Well, he's never won a Grand Prix yet. Gerhard has, but Martin, well, a master of races like this. Who knows how many pit stops Martin will be able to look after his car, look after his tires.
Well, the Grand Prix that he came closest to winning was Canada 92 when he was at Benetton with Schumacher as his teammate. And that's always been a little bit of a lottery in terms of performance, fuel economy, tyre wear. This is a race, again, it is a lottery. Nobody knows what's going to happen. The best guesstimates that we've got are that there is going to be a very, very busy pit lane. Who knows, maybe Martin Brundle, this could be the day he's waited over 10 years for.
Then we move to the row with Nicola Larini and Rubens Barrichello. Barrichello equaling his best qualifying performance ever, and Nicola Larini standing in for Jean Alesi, and, well, exactly one row behind team leader Gerhard Berger. And I think John a little bit disappointed not to be closer to Berger, although he was only 0.6 of a second behind him.
I think Larini's done everything that has been asked of him. He stepped in at the last minute. He hadn't had any time to test with the 94 chassis, so it was all a little bit new to him. And having come straight from Belgium, where he was taking part in the German Touring Car Championship in a four-wheel drive Alfa Romeo, and jumping into a Grand Prix car, as good as that Alfa Romeo is, it ain't a Grand Prix car. And the weight, the difference in braking potential, the handling, all those factors, they just take a little bit of time to get accustomed to. So I think Larini has fulfilled all expectations of him here this weekend.
We are waiting for the warm-up lap for the Pacific Grand Prix in Japan. And just to round up the top 10, Christian Fittipaldi 9th and Jos Verstappen is 10th. Looking at pretty pictures from Japan, and we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're back for more action from Japan here on Eurosport. The Pacific Grand Prix at the Tanaka International Circuit, Aida, Japan. We are waiting for the warm-up lap for all 26 drivers, and then it is 83 laps around this twisty circuit. The front row of the grid, Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher. 64th pole position for Senna, Schumacher equaling his best qualifying performance. Damon Hill and Mika Häkkinen occupy the second row of the grid, while the third row of the grid is for Gerhard Berger and Martin Brundle. Then it's Nicola Larini, Rubens Barrichello, Christian Fittipaldi and Jos Verstappen. Heinz-Harald Frentzen 11th, Mark Blundell 12th, and Blundell very quick in the morning warm-up. Then it's Morbidelli, Katayama, Alboreto, Comas, Pierluigi Martini and Eric Bernard in the first of the Ligier Renaults. Carl Wendlinger disappointingly in 19th position, and Aguri Suzuki on his return to Formula 1 in 20th. Johnny Herbert and Pedro Lamy make it to Lotus on the 12th row, and the last row the Simtex of Roland Ratzenberger and David Brabham. So that's the grid for the Pacific Grand Prix here in Japan. And while we're going to have a look at the Drivers' Championship, of course being led by Michael Schumacher after his win in Brazil, and that top 6 is exactly the same as the top 6 in Brazil. Of course, this will be followed by the Constructors' World Championship, with Benetton leading that by 4 points from Williams Renault. John, 83 laps around this circuit. It's going to be very important to get the start right, because after that, until you get to the first pit stops, I don't think a lot's going to change.
Well, there'll be a little bit of shuffling and scuffling, I'm quite sure, on the opening lap, and of course on the run down into the first corner, appropriately named. But once the lap has been completed and things begin to settle down, I'm quite sure that in many people's minds the safest place to try an overtaking maneuver is going to be at pit stop time, and anticipating a minimum per car of 2 stops and more likely 3, and possibly in the case of some people who are a little bit less delicate with the right foot, 4 stops. Well, I think the strategy of the race is going to be very much in the hands of those engineers who are sitting with monitors and computers deciding at what point they consider to be advantageous. Now, it doesn't always follow that the stop for tyres will be a stop for fuel, but one assumes the logic of doing so will follow.
The grandstands being nearly sold out. 45,000 people are here, of a possible 50,000 spectators that can get to the TI circuit. It's around 26 degrees and there's a little bit of wind. The engine is being started, the pace cars, we can see that in front of the field, and anytime now we should get a green flag, and then Ayrton Senna will lead the field away.
Well, one thing about this Pacific Grand Prix, the drivers better get to like it because they're going to be coming back in the future. There's been an agreement reached between Bernie Ecclestone and Mr. Tanaka, and we're going to see Grand Prix racing at this Tanaka International Circuit certainly over the next 3 years, with an option for a further 2, and that was something announced over the weekend. So boys, whatever it's like for 83 laps, it's going to be like it over the next 5 years as well.
Oh, there they go for the warm-up lap. That car is a bit dangerous.
Well, Mika Häkkinen got slightly caught out. What Michael Schumacher did was do a burnout literally on the grid. And of course the McLaren very quick off the line as well. Then Schumacher just backed off and Mika was looking for space. Maybe that was one of the overtaking points he was telling us about a little earlier in the morning.
Oh, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 11th position. Did one extra lap this morning during the warm-up. He passed the checkered flag twice, but got a bit of telling off from the clerk of the course, and that's all he got for it. He didn't get a fine or anything. And the excuse Heinz-Harald used apparently was that, well, I wasn't awake yet, to be honest.
Well, excuses like that in a sport at this level, I think, wouldn't be taken very lightly, but well, it appears that he's been able to get away with no more than a reprimand. And there we see the cars streaming down through hairpin bends. That's going to be favoured spot on the opening lap, in my view, for the quick and the brave to go down the inside. But on the opening lap, with cars basically all tightly packed together, it's rather reminiscent of Manicourt, the hairpin bend at the end of that long straight at Manicourt. And we've seen just what can happen when you come down from high speed down to relatively low speed. The pack bunches up. It's the wave effect that we see so familiarly on our humble motorways back in the UK. So it is a factor here this afternoon. Well, Schumacher certainly trying to get energy and heat into his tyres. It's not going to take too many laps for them to come up to their optimum temperature.
So while Ayrton Senna takes his place on the grid, the last cars still have to get on to the main straight.
Well, this is going to be, I think, quite a long wait for Senna on pole, because as you see, the snake or the chain of cars is still coming around, making their way onto the start-finish straight. And Senna will be very anxious indeed to get proceedings underway.
Ayrton Senna on the right side, behind him Damon Hill, and then on the left we see Michael Schumacher, followed by Mika Häkkinen, and there is Ayrton Senna. That is Michael Schumacher. We're waiting for the man with the green flag, and then we can still see cars lining up on the grid. The green flag, then it's the 5-second board. First gear engaged, revs are up, and then red light to green light. The red light is on and the green is on, and who has the best start? It looks like Schumacher. Schumacher takes the lead, and Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna spins off again.
No, he didn't. He was hit by Mika Häkkinen, and also, well, Nicola Larini involved there. And Senna is out of the Grand Prix. Mark Blundell also is a spinner. He may have lost his engine, but the Ferrari of Larini and Senna's Williams are out in the first corner. And that is all Olivier Panis and problems as well. That is all due to Senna's poor start. Schumacher got them in the initiative. Senna came across to the right to try and block him. Schumacher got away. He then had Mika Häkkinen directly behind him, and it appears to me that Mika might just have tipped the rear wheel or the wing of Senna's Williams, and Larini, nowhere to go, bumped into, and this, well, who could have written a script just like that?
So Michael Schumacher leads the Pacific Grand Prix, and for the German, that is a dream start, to say the least. Let's look at it again. Schumacher just a better start of the two.
Well, look, Senna tries to come across the block. He tries to go down the inside of Schumacher. Suddenly, there is contact. Mika Häkkinen tips the back of Senna's Williams. Larini, nowhere to go, bumps into the right front, and in fact, that's what caused, ultimately, the retirement for Senna. And, well, I don't know what to think about. Let's look at the overhead shot. You see Senna trying to sneak underneath, and contact from Mika Häkkinen, unintentional contact. Larini forced out Blundell in his Tyrrell, a spinner in the middle of the pack as well.
Well, Blundell, John, was hit by Eric Comas, and well, that's not a happy Frank Williams, and that is very definitely not a happy Ayrton Senna.
Well, starts of races are always very tense times indeed, and Schumacher comfortably leading on the second lap. Mika Häkkinen in second place. And really, I mean, he must be laughing all the way around the lap. I mean, I'm sure he's sad that he doesn't have a battle, but his principal challenger, the man he was most concerned about, is out walking back, and bitterly disappointed that for the second Grand Prix in '94 there are no points in this championship challenge.
Ayrton Senna walking back to the pits, and it is Michael Schumacher who leads Mika Häkkinen, and then it's Damon Hill. But look at the lead, Schumacher is pulling out.
Well, that little battle at second is going to keep us, I hope, amused if we ever get to look at it. But already the lead three cars are significantly ahead of the rest of the pack. .7 seconds after one lap. That is quite a lot, I should say. Gerhard Berger we'll see in fourth position. Also Larini walking back. Barrichello fifth. Brundle in sixth place. So those are the people that are in point scoring positions at the moment. Looks to me like Barrichello really took a great advantage in all that confusion in the first corner, and to get himself into fifth place on the opening lap enables him to focus just on running up until at least the first of the many pit stops we're anticipating.
Well, there we see Christian Fittipaldi and Heinz-Harald Frenz and Jos Verstappen. That is the three drivers fighting for seventh place at the moment. Well, the Japanese Grand Prix, if you can't have a Japanese winner, you might as well have a Japanese sponsor leading it.
Well, it's very disappointing in reality to have had Senna. And here we see the start from on board with Gerhard Berger. And as ever, action all around the circuit. And Damon, the same point in the circuit where he had problems on Saturday, is in trouble again now. Was that contact, or was that just an error on Damon? And look at the traffic jam behind. Sauber's crawling all over Damon as he tries to regain traction. His tyres, of course, covered in muck and dust. Look, Verstappen through. Fittipaldi trying to squeeze through, or Morbidelli trying to squeeze through. Damon defending, saying, "Don't be stupid, guys. I'm only here because of a little error. I'm going to be past you when I get back onto the straight."
Now, John, I wonder whether that was a little clash with Mika Häkkinen Damon had there.
Well, if you've tagged one of them, why not tag the other one? I mean, make it a full house. Well, unfortunately, we didn't see the reason for Damon's position off the track. That may come in a replay in a moment or two.
Nicola Larini, who gets another chance on finishing a Grand Prix in Imola, where he will be replacing Jean Alesi again. Alesi, who will probably be back in Monaco. Damon Hill. Is he going to get a toe from Jos Verstappen? He is. Dives down the inside, and no way.
No, the nose looked very vulnerable on Damon's Williams. Jos Verstappen, quite rightly, shut the door. This is a race for position. There are no prisoners going to be taken. And in spite of this being... And Damon again well off the track. I mean, that is, I think, frustration. What he needs to do is just compose himself. Let all the blood pressure settle down. Breathe deeply and slowly. It's a long, long way. And again, you see how much time he's lost in his excitement almost to get past Verstappen. He knows that Verstappen and the Benetton Ford are capable of holding him up. He knows he's capable of lapping faster, but if he can't get the momentum to pass at the part of the circuit where his strengths lie, he's going to be held up. But take a lap, take a couple of laps, look at it, think about it, work it out. You've got more horsepower, you've got potentially more lap speed. You know where the opportunities are going to arise, and well, if you hadn't run wide out of Atwood Hairpin or Atwood Curve, I think you'd have been close enough to Verstappen to do what you didn't quite succeed in doing the lap before.
Well, he's closer now. He's diving down the inside and taking the place from Jos Verstappen. So Damon Hill on his way to Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But what a sensational couple of laps, with Senna spinning off and also Damon Hill spinning out. Actually, the other way around.
Well, I think Senna really was helped conclusively by Mika Häkkinen, and it's purely unintentionally, I'm sure. But as we were told, Mika reckons there are 5 overtaking spots. Certainly that was one of them, but I don't think it was his intention to pass. I think Senna was being a little bit ambitious in thinking he might just threaten Schumacher in that first corner. He had to back off because Schumacher had done so, and Mika's momentum just caused him to tip the rear of Senna's Williams, and as simply as that, he was out.
Eric Comas being lapped by Michael Schumacher. Comas also held up in that first corner incident, and that car's got quite a lot of understeer coming through that left-hander jump.
But the thing the car doesn't have is the transition to oversteer. The balance of the car, to me, looks pretty good in race configuration. Remember, the cars are running a heavier fuel load probably at most points than they have any point in the weekend, and Damon again using all his experience and skill and putting the Sauber of Frentzen one more spot down. Christian Fittipaldi is in his sights, and this may be, well, I'm not saying more difficult, but the footwork forward is pretty handy around the TI circuit. Damon, you see, using the car, the back end just stepping out on power, and that's going to eat in and eat up his first set of tyres very quickly indeed. You see the back of the car beginning just to drift out on the exit of the corner. That's the first sign to me that he's used those rear tyres harder, in my mind, than is ideal.
Oh, Damon Hill on his way to Christian Fittipaldi, and right in front of Fittipaldi are Brundle, Berger, Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher, still leading the Pacific Grand Prix. Well, and who would have thought, John, that after 2 Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna would have 0 points?
I mean, it is unthinkable. Of course, there are 14 more Grand Prix, and potentially 140 points available for Senna. But this championship, the complexion changed very dramatically indeed. By the time we got to Brazil, everybody had, I think, written the championship off as being a fait accompli for Williams and Senna. But this man, this team, the Ford, the new Zetec R Ford engine, were the dominant partnership. And I think the argument still is open as to whether Senna and Williams and Renault were good enough in the race to eclipse the performance of Schumacher, Benetton and Ford. Well, Barrichello benefiting from Damon's moments some 4 laps ago, up into 4th place.
Well, the top 6 with Schumacher, Häkkinen, Berger, Barrichello, Brundle and Fittipaldi. And we're riding with race leader Michael Schumacher.
Fortunately, the engine sink and the pictures are out, and that isn't his engine sounding rough. That's just the fact that the sink isn't correct. But I mean, at the dream start, the dream position for Schumacher, Brundle and Barrichello battling away for 4th and 5th places. And a little bit of understeer from Barrichello as he came through what we euphemistically call Hobbs Corner.
And John Damon Hill's gone past Christian Fittipaldi and is now on his way to Martin Brundle. Well, tyre stops. How many are we going to see per car? I know one of the Benettons is supposed to come in around lap 21-22, and I know that's not the leading car that's planned to be coming in then.
Well, I can't imagine where, Allard, you got that information. But certainly a Benetton, I would expect. And of course, again, this whole thing, we're talking about strategy. Benetton's strategy probably has been adjusted, or will be adjusted, now that Senna is out of the Grand Prix. Damon Hill, of course, running just outside, just into the points now, is not at this point a threat to Schumacher, so they can afford to expand any strategy they may have already had in place.
There's Mika Häkkinen, a lonely 2nd place at the moment. And you see the black on his nose going from where he just tapped Ayrton Senna into a spin.
And this is one of the opportunities Häkkinen has been talking about, because as they finish this very fast Mars S, he will consider sliding down the inside, but not close enough to do it. Of course, Peugeot still developing their V10. This is the A6 version of the V10, the 4-valve per cylinder, and getting very close indeed. And Kumas's car is quick in effect down the straight, and Häkkinen unimpressed, well, sort of saying unimpressed initially, but thank you very much anyway.
Well, there's smoke coming out of that Peugeot engine. The back of the McLaren, it doesn't look very healthy, John.
Well, it just seemed under braking into a couple of those corners directly behind pits. And I'm not sure it's from the engine. It's a fluid of some description, an oil of some description. But it doesn't appear to be affecting the car when it's under power. It just was, as the car rolled into a corner off throttle, a little trickle came out.
So it could be anything. But let's keep an eye on that car. Let's keep an eye on proceedings of Damon Hill as well, who's right behind Martin Brundle at the moment. And Brundle, John, is one of the drivers that spent quite a lot of time running on the Goodyear B compound tyre.
Well, McLaren were one of the teams that did have an allocation of B compound Goodyears, and whether they have chosen to run as a closely guarded secret, again, the teams are not giving this information away freely, because again, there's too much at stake. Well, no problem at all as Renault Power goes face to face, head to head with Peugeot Power, and at the minute Renault has got it.
So Damon Hill right behind Rubens Barrichello. But O'Day, Damon has really got to work for it. We never saw the cause of that little spin he had on the second lap, but it did lose him quite a lot of time.
Well, there's a replay of the overtaking at the end of the straight, and really no problem for Damon. He had the advantage of speed down the straight. He was out early enough to get alongside Martin. Martin recognised this is the time to give up my position. And now let's see how the young Brazilian copes with pressure. Again, same situation, big horsepower advantage in favour of Damon Hill. Looking down the inside, and Damon, wait, look, you've got the advantage of power. That isn't the best thing to do. You could have passed him comfortably down the straight. Nonetheless, a courageous move, and it just indicates the determination that Damon Hill has in his, and Barrichello just locking up that right front, under braking into the hairpin.
Well, Damon doesn't want to wait. He's not in the mood for waiting. There's the next man on his calendar. That's Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen. The gap 9.9 seconds. Then it's Berger and Barrichello, but it's now Berger and Damon Hill, as you can see on your screen. Martin Brundle in 6th position, and then it's 7th Christian Fittipaldi, 8th Frentzen, 9th Verstappen, 10th Morbidelli, 11th Katayama, and in 12th position Michele Alboreto. Then it's Pierluigi Martini in 13th, Carl Wendlinger, and those other drivers still going rounds in this Pacific Grand Prix.
What Barrichello and Martin Brundle must be hoping for, but of course it's all gone now, was to be dragged along with Damon Hill up to Gerhard Berger. But the speed that Hill is running at, certainly the quickest man on the track, I would say, is just too fast a pace, and contact has been almost broken off as soon as Damon took away 4th place from Barrichello. But Schumacher coming onto pit straight, being economical, not running over the curbs, driving a very measured race at this point. It's almost too easy now for Michael Schumacher. All he's got to do is just drive a race, make no errors. The team will have to call the pit stops when they think it's opportune. They want to come in when the pit lane is as free as possible. They don't want to have congestion. Again, as we mentioned and we saw in Brazil, places can be won and lost just in the space of a pit stop.
Michael Schumacher being nearly a second a lap quicker than Mika Häkkinen at the moment. And there's, well, Oliver Panis following 2 Lotuses. And Lotus, John, the team is in trouble, we can say that safely. While Martin Brundle is now trying to take that position away from Rubens Barrichello. And that is Haas V10 power versus Peugeot V10 power.
Well, Rubens went from left to right in his efforts to stem Brundle's attack, and you could see that Rubens, when he was halfway down the straight, had his eyes firmly planted in his mirror to anticipate what Brundle was going to do. Martin has not very much overtaking opportunities in this part of the circuit. Your best opportunity was on the straight. We've said that it is easily defended, and the straight line performance of these two cars is probably very similar. The horsepower of the V10 Hart and of the V10 Peugeot probably within 10 or so horsepower, and it's just a question of who gets onto the straight. The best gets that run up behind, and but as I say, Barrichello had no difficulty, though it was, let's say, fairly aggressively defended.
Now Martin going down to Atwood, and he's got to have a good exit out of Atwood and then try again, basically.
Well, just getting yourself placed correctly. I think he's a little bit too far back this time. And of course, once, Damon, Gerhard is not the person to play that type of game with. You've got, again, car advantage. It'll take maybe a lap for you to position yourself correctly. And who's that stop? One of the Larousse.
Well, there's an interesting duel here. It's for third position, which is currently held by the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, and Damon Hill wants that position back. He held it for the first couple of laps, then spun off the circuit, fell back to 10th position. And we can see Gerhard looking in his mirrors. Well, they're both pretty hot nuts.
Gerhard is the harder of the two, but Damon in this mood is, I tell you, as steely as anybody. And his motivation very, very high. And look, right on the rear wing, as Beretto's car is beached on the curbing, and that's behind the pits, the section behind the pits. Now here's Damon. He's just going to draft by Gerhard, assuming that Berger's Ferrari isn't made the width of the entire straight. Well, Berger defending, going down the middle of the road, forcing Damon to take the long way around. And Damon is prepared to do it. He's going to go eyeball to eyeball. Can he make it down? And that's the corner where you spun. Don't just give yourself space. There's parts of the track where you can make it cleanly and easily, and there's other parts where it's a lot more difficult. And with Berger, it is never going to be easy anyway.
So I think we've got to wait until we get through Atwood Curve again and onto the straight, and then see whether Damon can sell Gerhard a dummy or find a way around the inside, because I suppose that's the way he's got to go.
Well, this is the first real opposition Damon Hill has had since the spin in the opening laps. Everybody else he's been able to handle very comfortably. But Gerhard has traditionally been a very competitive Grand Prix driver. He will not concede position. And Damon, you see this time further back, but no problem. He will run up and be quicker through the corner onto the straight. But the gap on this lap certainly too great.
I don't know what happened there. Damon seemed to lose a little.
I don't think so. I think he's just giving himself a moment. He's charged like mad these last 10 or 12 laps. And sometimes, you want to catch your breath, and Mika Häkkinen the first into the pits. And giving it lots and lots of Peugeot V10 power as he slides in. That's the first of the leading group to make a pit stop. Fuel in, 4 fresh tyres on, and I suspect this is going to be a 3-stop stop. Mika Häkkinen now, I think the engine may have stalled, and yes, it has indeed. He's stalled the engine, and this is the problem with a multiple pit stop strategy. Damon Hill in also, and I'm not surprised, because Damon's, and I think that was probably the reason he may well have been on the radio to the pits. Häkkinen out of the pits. But, all the advantage that he may have had by making an early pit stop completely out the window. But it's only the first of probably another 2 or 3. Damon, likewise, out like a rabbit.
And now the gap, John, between Mika Häkkinen and Damon Hill has closed considerably because of that pit stop that did not go according plan.
Well, the responsibility of keeping the engine running is with the driver. I know how difficult it can be in situations like that. It's a very stressful moment. They've got the clutch mechanism, of course, which operates off the steering wheel. It's not like a conventional car. There is no clutch pedal in the McLaren. Maybe a small problem with that. But all the advantage and hopes that Mika had after the opening lap are behind him. And he's going to have to work very hard indeed to regain. Oh, and again you see that smoke, it's just when he comes back on the throttle, having lifted off, little puff of smoke. Now that's indication to me that if it is mechanical, there's oil getting by the rings into the cylinder head, or it may just simply be there's a minor amount of oil sloshing around in the underbody of the car, and the G-force is just blowing it simply onto the exhaust, and that's what we're seeing.
10th and 11th there at the moment. Mika Häkkinen and Damon Hill, the two drivers that came in first for a regular pit stop, and now we've got to wait. Oh, and that's the end of Mika Häkkinen's race.
Well, something has gone wrong for Mika Häkkinen, and it may be a legacy of his stop when he lost the engine, because suddenly he slowed down dramatically, and the drama is still with Häkkinen. He will be into the pits at the end of this lap if he makes it back.
Well, he was in 9th position. He's not anymore. And oh, he seems... Well, does that look like an engine problem or a gearbox problem, John? I mean...
Well, I think we're only going to be second guessing, but
exactly.
It's certainly a problem that is preventing him driving his car at a competitive speed. It happened pretty dramatically, and you saw how quickly Damon Hill was able to pounce and overtake and pull away. Well, back to race leader Michael Schumacher, very comfortably in the lead now. Of course, he is yet to make his first stop, and I'm quite certain that Ross Brawn and all the engineers in Benetton have looked at alternate strategies, and of course they'll be talking to Schumacher if and when necessary.
Michael Schumacher leads the Pacific Grand Prix. We're back after the break. Michael Schumacher leads Gerhard Berger and Rubens Barrichello, Martin Brundle, Christian Fittipaldi and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. You're watching the Pacific Grand Prix from Ida, Japan, here on Eurosport. And John, that Ferrari, Gerhard still hasn't made a pit stop, but it looks very good.
Well, that's going to bring a little bit of cheer to the hearts of all the supporters of Ferrari as we see the first Benetton into the pits.
And that is race leader Michael Schumacher coming into the pits.
Coming in very much more cautiously than we saw Häkkinen. The Benetton team have rehearsed these pit stops to the point of an absolute perfection. 8 seconds. And that's about the best we've seen. We didn't get to see how quick Williams and Damon Hill were, but I suspect it's sufficient to maintain Schumacher's lead of the Grand Prix.
Mika Häkkinen explaining why he retired from this Grand Prix. He suddenly slowed.
He's probably also explaining what happened with Senna in that first corner. Well, there's second place man Berger. In the lone Ferrari, of course, Nicola Larini involved in that opening corner shuffle when he was sort of punted out to the left and he made contact with the right front suspension on Senna's Williams. But for Gerhard, it makes a change to be running at the front in a Ferrari in a Grand Prix.
There's Schumacher. Well, he's got a 25-second lead and he can control the race the way we've seen Senna control races and other people. Like, it's not easy, but it's handy.
Well, a cushion like that, as we have said, enables you or the team to do a number of different things. They can stick with the strategy, which was the predetermined race strategy. They can afford to alter it. At that first pit stop we've just seen for Schumacher, they may well have chosen to put in, let's say, slightly more fuel than what the original preferred amount would have been, or literally just, look, we've got a game plan, let's stick with it. We're under no pressure. We've rehearsed our pit stops back at Enstone in England. We've done them, I think, into the hundreds of them. The team are capable of doing it in the middle of the night without any light at all. Just stick with what you have. Go with it. You've got a comfortable lead in the race. There's no car. The only possible challenger, but he's too far back, is Damon Hill. So there's no sweat at all. Even you could see how cautious Schumacher was coming up to put a lap on the Minardi. He just decided no need to pressure or push. Oh, and Guri Suzuki, Rubens Barrichello,
very late on the brakes, being pressured by Martin Brundle, and that is a race for third position, John. So those two, they're having a battle for the last 20-odd laps, and Barrichello still defending that position. Well, he's entitled to do so. But it's a good fight. It's one of the few good fights going on at the circuit at the moment. And there we see Gerhard Berger. So that was second, third and fourth place cars in one shot. And for Rubens, it's well, he finished fourth in Brazil. That was his best result ever. He equaled his best qualifying performance and running around third.
And this equals what he was doing back at Donington at the European Grand Prix last year, when he was robbed of a podium position, and in fact Jordan's first podium chance as well, when they had a fuel pump problem in the closing laps of that Grand Prix. So he's not going to give it up to Martin Brundle or anybody.
And there we see positions.
Oh, and again, very, very late on the brakes and losing momentum. He goes so late and deep into the corner to defend that he therefore is that little bit later getting on the power, and that's where Brundle is able to again run him down.
Of course, Berger, Barrichello and Brundle have not made a pit stop yet. Damon Hill, who is following them, has made his first tyre stop, and so has race leader Michael Schumacher. It's interesting to see, John, where Barrichello gains and where Brundle gains.
I think it's a bit on one corner one gains, on the next corner he loses. It's a question of getting in certain parts of the circuit. I mean, Brundle will now, in my view, catch up through these very fast S's on the run into Atwood Curve. But there's a point at which, with the speed they're running at and the aerodynamics involved, you can only get so close. Now, Brundle is well placed, in my view, to have another attack as they come down the straight. But of course, Barrichello is going to defend.
Rubens again late on the brakes, and there Martin a little bit quicker out of the corner, and there we saw a glimpse of Damon Hill. It was 5.9 seconds the gap the lap before, now 4.2 seconds. So Damon on a charge, still on that fresher set of tyres.
And that's a big advantage, because he did use his first set very hard indeed, and his second set will undoubtedly give him a significant performance gain over Barrichello. And Martin Brundle deciding, I've had enough of this game. I think my best option is come into the pits, have my first tyre stop, and hopefully McLaren will do it faster, in his view, than Barrichello's team, thus Jordan will do for Barrichello.
So Damon Hill moves into third position now, because Gerhard Berger is in the pits, and also leaving two big black lines. And also Martin Brundle's gone into the pits. So Damon Hill is either going to overtake Rubens Barrichello, who is now running second.
Just watching how Berger rejoined the circuit then, reminding myself of what took place in Portugal last year. Berger came from the right side of the track very abruptly across to the left to take the line for first corner. I don't know whether he's able to see at the point of exit if there's anybody there in the track or not, but it appears to me that it is actually blind. And well, there was no traffic there when he rejoined the track, but nonetheless it's something I think we should watch out for when the pit stops are coming more frequently and there is traffic at that point.
John, you said different strategies for the two Benetton drivers. Now, we've seen Michael Schumacher making a pit stop. We haven't seen Jos Verstappen in yet. He's now right behind Martin Brundle, but Verstappen maybe one stop less.
It's very possible. I think that the team obviously very focused on Schumacher. That's their primary objective. But if that strategy did happen to go very badly wrong, well, they've got the option of Verstappen making one stop less. And literally nobody can predict, no team is able to anticipate what is going to happen over the course of the 83 laps. And for Goodyear themselves, they've said, look, you know, we feel that because of the nature of the circuit, without traction control, and the amount of energy and load that is going into the rear tyres in particular, it is beneficial to have certainly 2, and I think the ideal is 3. It looks like it's going to be 2 for Verstappen, 3 for Michael Schumacher.
Eric Comas in front of this little group.
McLaren looks very good on brakes. It's been noticed it a couple of times. Unable to close very close indeed to the back of Fittipaldi in his footwork forward.
And Comas, John, is well, Fittipaldi is not getting any closer to him.
No shame for Comas that he had that opening lap contretemps, because that car has been extremely quick at points and then totally disappointing. No one knows where the performance went. It comes and goes. And certainly now it appears to be about the same speed as Fittipaldi's footwork forward. Well, not everybody has chosen to go the recommended Goodyear C route, certainly at the start of the race. Rubens Barrichello and Martin Brundle, they had sets of the B compound tyre. Now Goodyear reckoned that was about 7/10 of a second a lap slower. What they will have done at that first stop, we don't know, but certainly they did start on that B compound. That's the information we're getting back. Now that first run is over, the teams are not quite so reluctant to let us know.
So Brundle still trying to find a way past Fittipaldi, and there's Damon Hill trying to find a way past Rubens Barrichello, and we've seen Brundle try that as well.
Yeah, Damon's task, of course, is, I think, that little bit easier. He's got considerable amount of a power advantage, and again we saw that happen before, the same point in the circuit when he overtook Barrichello for the first time on his charge back up through the field. Same point in the circuit, exactly the same move. I think he likes it down at Atwood curve.
So Damon Hill moves up to second position when Michael Schumacher has crossed the line to start lap 31 out of 83. So there's still plenty of life left, John, in the race for Damon to close up, or it's not over yet.
No, just watching what Barrichello's been doing and getting that information, it does seem to me that Jordan are looking at a 2-stop race for Barrichello, and the same for Aguri Suzuki.
John, the thing that springs to mind when you look at all this is that the cars do slide a lot more than they did last year.
Great, isn't it?
It's lovely. I love it. I mean, even more than in Brazil, it seems. But it's like they're sliding around. You can see the cars work. The drivers have to work. It's brilliant.
Well, the objective of the changes was to put the control of a Grand Prix car into the hands of a Grand Prix driver, and not into that of the computers and the engineers that designed those systems. And I'm certainly very happy to see more movement from a car, to see a car in fact sliding, or in relative terms sliding. It's difficult sometimes on these long shots to see the subtlety of it, but it is there, believe me.
Verstappen closing up on the battle between Christian Fittipaldi and Martin Brundle. And John, the Verstappen and Schumacher did 4 laps this morning, and well, Schumacher did 8. He did 4 in the spare car and 4 in his race car. And the reason said was that the engine life is around 330 to 350 kilometers, and they just cannot or don't want to do more laps just to keep the engine as fresh as possible.
Well, that's if you've got the luxury of being able to do that, it's a great way to preserve your engines Of course, there's a slightly revised piston package in the Z-Tech R from Cosworth, and they are in Verstappen's car as well as in Schumacher's car. And the reason is that basically it's a more reliable piston.
And that engine, the highest revving V8 engine ever built.
Well, the facts and figures about about the Z-Tech R are amazing. And Ford have produced a leaflet on what it's capable of doing, and when we get a quieter moment in this Grand Prix, we can certainly give our audience some of those figures.
Well, we've seen the top 6 on our screen, with Martin Brundle nearly a lap behind, and there we see Verstappen in 7th. He's the last unlapped driver, and then he will be lapped by his team leader Michael Schumacher fairly soon. So that is the situation here at the Pacific Grand Prix. We're going to take a short break here on Eurosport. Please rejoin us after that for the rest of the Pacific Grand Prix from TI in Japan. We are with, there's Jos Verstappen getting very sideways, but I was going to say welcome back. We go running with race leader Michael Schumacher. There we see him in front of the other Benetton Ford. We're on lap 33. We've got 50 laps to go.
Indeed, and a little bit of traffic ahead for Schumacher to negotiate his way around, and he just had put a lap on to his teammate Verstappen. Verstappen not a stopper yet for a fresh set of tyres, and you could see the penalty for that when he got his right foot into it on the edge of the backwood. Back end steps smartly sideways, and I would imagine that Verstappen might think, well, this is an opportunity now for me to make at least one pit stop in this Grand Prix.
Well, while we watch Michael Schumacher, let's try and keep an eye on Jos Verstappen.
Schumacher, Martin Brundle, well, he ran very close as he came through there, and I wondered, did he actually run off the track, or is he back on there? You can see he got very close to Fittipaldi. He had to suddenly turn sharp right and get off the throttle and instantly drop right back. Michael Schumacher, of course, those are the little heart-stopping moments that you aren't able to expect, but you've got to be prepared for. But at least it made passing Brundle a lot easier.
Yep. So Schumacher has gone past, and that's going to be...
Oh, that's messy. That is very messy indeed. There's midfield, back, tail enders all over the place. And Brundle sliding underneath in, of course, one of the two Lotus.
And Verstappen going with him, and we're on lap 34, and still Verstappen has not been in, so I would not be surprised, John. We're nearly halfway. Well, another 6-7 laps to go when we're halfway. And is Verstappen going to go for one stop?
Well, Schumacher couldn't even out accelerate Christian Fittipaldi as they came down to the end of pit straight. And Christian, I'm sure, isn't being uncooperative, but he is in a race and he's fired up, he's charging.
And Eric Comas in front, going around Roland Ratzenberger's Simtek.
Very close.
Well, if you look at those cars, John, there's a LaRousse, a Footwork, a Benetton, a Simtek, another Benetton. That's like Formula Ford racing.
Well, this is the version of things that we were getting, that when you are closely bunched together, as we're seeing cars, in fact, it's very difficult to get past. You don't have that chance to run up to a car and carry your momentum past him. And that's the problem that Schumacher is faced with. He's got Christian Fittipaldi ahead of him. But I would think that very shortly the blue flags will be waved expressly at Fittipaldi to make him aware that race leader is looking to come through. But you can see an acceleration onto the pit straight, nothing to give and take.
And Schumacher, John, is far enough ahead to bide his time and take his moment and maybe even lose a little time behind, you know, without taking any chances.
I think he's got to be very cautious. It is a dangerous moment. And be careful, Michael. You know, Fittipaldi is not conceding the corner to you. You've now got a chance to pick up the draft. Hand out of the cockpit, wiping. Well, that's Fittipaldi's hand out of the cockpit, wiping his visor or tearing away one of the blip-offs. And all this is frustrating, and it's also hazardous because it's so easy to lose your control. Oh goodness, all this messy. This is unbelievable. Looking backwards from Fittipaldi's car. Now Schumacher. Oh, and Brundle. Oh dear me, I tell you, talk about a traffic jam. So Brundle took advantage of Schumacher's move, and Fittipaldi, and in the course of doing so, almost had contact to the back of Schumacher. You know, you can't be too careful, and it's not always in your own hands either.
And now Verstappen has the task of trying to pass Christian Fittipaldi, but of course that is a fight for position. And I think, John, Michael Schumacher is a very relieved man to have passed that bunch of cars.
That was hazardous, I tell you. The number of cars running very close together, probably very marginal on grip, not necessarily in control at any point. A moment of, in my view, stay well out of it as much as you can.
Martin Brundle, incidentally, now keeping up with race leader Michael Schumacher.
Well, I think Schumacher is just waiting for the clear opportunity to pass Comas, and you know, Comas out there racing as hard as he can, and second place man Damon Hill making his way down to the hairpin. He's got a clear track, of course, and he's probably taking seconds out of Schumacher's lead. But he, of course, will also have to be confronted by that bunch of 5 cars, so the seesaw effect will swing back in favour of Michael Schumacher.
We're nearing halfway. Damon Hill on lap 40. Michael Schumacher has started lap 41 out of 83, and there Damon's going to be delicate with the throttle. But
he throws the car into the corner. I mean, there's no delicacy there. That's just a big fistful of right-hand lock. And Williams, you did have problems here on the Thursday. Disappointment from both drivers about the car's handling and performance. Whatever they've done, and part of that is very accurate measurement of ride heights, and they've found time and performance as a consequence of adjusting the ride height of their car over what they thought they should be at when they arrived to run on Thursday.
There he is, Damon Hill. So also there was a report in a French newspaper that the RS6 engine was not as good as the RS5 engine. Now the RS5 engine I thought was a beautiful engine.
Well, I think it's difficult, maybe the analogy that was in one of the French newspapers, that the RS6 is disappointing in comparison to RS5. I think part of that may be due to the change in throttle mechanisms. When you had fly-by-wire throttle, you had the perfect throttle mechanism for a modern Grand Prix engine. Going back to the days of the ARC, where you've got a metal cable connecting the throttle pedal to the engine, you lose some of the functions that were a part of fly-by-wire throttle. And that, in my view, may be why, instead of having an optimized engine at any part of a throttle opening, you don't have that with a throttle cable connected to the throttle slides or the butterflies or whatever it is in the case of the Renault engine. So I think it's more a function of the mechanism than the engine itself.
With 42 laps to go, the gap between Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher is 34 seconds. And Damon's car was sliding a lot coming onto the long straight, the fastest part of the circuit. And I wonder, John, will he go and make another tyre stop?
Well, I think you've just anticipated it. They are a fresh or a fresher set of Goodyear C compounds ready and waiting for Damon, and the entire focus of the team is on Damon Hill, the man who finished second in Brazil, currently running second, and he has eaten into Michael Schumacher's lead, and he's decided this is the time for that second pit stop.
Running very close past that Armco. So
well, certainly more prudent in his entry to the pits than we saw from Mika Häkkinen much earlier. Very good stop from Williams' team. I think that's a good strategy, I think.
He's still got second place, just in front of Gerhard Berger now. That gap was 18 seconds, so all in all, Damon has not lost quite a lot of time.
He's gotten in and out and retained position on fresh rubber. He can now again charge. The only fly in his ointment is going to be that gaggle of cars that delayed Schumacher for some 5 laps. And I think Schumacher will try and put as many seconds between himself and that group of cars before he himself might decide to make a second stop. He will not want to come into the pits, have a second set of tyres fitted, and then find himself in the midst of that battling group of 5 cars.
The gap now just over 50 seconds. Then it's Gerhard Berger and Rubens Barrichello. Martin Brundle still in 5th and Christian Fittipaldi in 6th position. And they're followed by Jos Verstappen, Frentzen, Morbidelli, Wendlinger, Alboreto and Martini. That's the top 12. Well, Damon going past the Jordan on the main straight. And I think Schumacher has at least got to wait one more stop, and Damon is not waiting for anybody, is he?
He's definitely fired up. I've never seen Damon quite so possessed as we're seeing him here this afternoon. And he's not taken one prisoner so far, has he?
He hasn't. It's a little bit like Monza last year when he had that mishap on the first corner with Ayrton Senna and then charged all the way up to the gearbox of Alain Prost. Now, can Damon Hill charge up to the gearbox of Michael Schumacher? He's got 39 laps to close the gap. So Damon Hill in second place behind Benetton Ford driver Michael Schumacher, in front of Gerhard Berger and Rubens Barrichello. And there is disappointment for the Japanese fans. Ukio Katayama is out of the Grand Prix. He blew an engine during the morning warm-up and now he's exit. So Guri Suzuki is now top Japanese driver in the race.
Well, Hill with a nice clear track again on a fresh set of tyres. Every opportunity to carve more seconds out of Michael Schumacher's lead, and Schumacher yet to make his second stop.
We're going to take a short break here on Eurosport, and after that we'll find out whether Damon Hill can close in on Michael Schumacher. We'll be back very shortly. Don't go away. Welcome back on Eurosport, and that's the end of the other Japanese driver, Aguri Suzuki. So no Japanese drivers in this Pacific Grand Prix. Very sad indeed. Well, we've been focused on Jos Verstappen, and there's a lot of dust, and Christian Fittipaldi goes into the pits for a tyre stop. And we're wondering, is Verstappen going all the way?
Well, I don't think he is going to go all the way, but I think he may only be making one stop. Certainly, to be this far into the race without stopping Katayama making his way back in the Japanese press, capturing the moment. Well, it's rather lonely now out there for Verstappen. He's pulled away from those behind and nobody immediately in sight.
And Verstappen, for the first time today in the points, taken over 6th position from Christian Fittipaldi. And, well, 2 Benettons in a point scoring position. And it's the only team that's got 2 cars still in the top 6.
Well, that's all he's been asked to do, bring your car home in the points. Well, the charging Damon Hill. Well, if he gets onto the podium, I do hope we see a smile from Damon. I know sometimes he sticks a lemon in his pocket before he goes on the podium just to make sure he doesn't smile. And he's driven a hard race to date. He's shown aggression. I'm delighted to see it. Still, in relative terms, a very inexperienced Grand Prix driver.
And if it stays like this, he'll have a very firm 2nd place in the championship. Jean Alesi not scoring, and Ukio Katayama we saw retiring. Rubens Barrichello could score points, so, and of course Wendlinger, but Wendlinger not in the top 8 at the moment.
And look at Schumacher. But that car really does look impressive as it swings through Mike Knight corner down into last corner. Confidence written all over this drive from Schumacher. You can see when he turns and he's able to lean on the car. He has so much confidence.
Schumacher. John, I think the Benetton team running a lot of downforce. I know we've said over the weekend, like, you run as much as you can, but the Benettons were not very impressive on straight line speed.
Well, I think it's a combination on a circuit like this. Straight line speed is a factor if you can be fast onto the straight as much as it is in being fast in the straight. But if you're slow in a lap, well, then just put the wing on and find the correct, the balance, the compromise. And certainly the Benetton is a fairly, well, in fact it is a high downforce package. The next Grand Prix in San Marino will tell us whether it's a car that is good on a circuit which is undoubtedly a out-and-out power circuit. That's the Imola circuit with a very long straight. So we'll not be seeing the massive rear wing that we have here this weekend. Schumacher 55 seconds ahead of Damon Hill. Berger 3rd, the last unlapped man.
There we see the last point for Verstappen, and that is your top 6 at the moment. And there's a fight, Rubens Barrichello and Martin Brundle. Oh, and Damon Hill's retiring. Damon Hill is out of the Pacific Grand Prix. And, well, don't know what it looks like, but it's not good.
Well, great disappointment, not least of all from Frank Williams.
I mean, Damon's tried very hard indeed after the 2nd lap spin he had. So, well, when there's Jos, is it Verstappen or Schumacher? I think it's Schumacher in the pits. Yes, it's Schumacher in the pits.
Well, I think he was probably literally called in the moment that the Benetton team were aware that Hill was out. Fresh rubber, more fuel. And, well, is this going to be the run now until the end? Berger over a minute behind. And that puts Barrichello up into third and Brundle fourth, and these two have battled away and no quarter given virtually for the entire distance to date.
Of course, Jos Verstappen moves into fifth position and the last point, so for the moment, goes to Christian Fittipaldi.
Well, I did say before this Grand Prix that it would be a little bit of a lottery. I think Verstappen and the two Williams were the ones that we would expect to be the obvious winner, but from second place backwards, anything's possible, and it's still possible.
Well, John, we keep saying it's a physically hard circle. Oh, and Rubens.
Well, but Ratzenberger wasn't being maybe quite as quick in getting out of the way, and there was a small contact, left front, right rear. Shouldn't be a problem. But an aggressive drive also from the youngest man. Is he the youngest man? He is the youngest man in Formula One. I think he's still younger than Verstappen, and there's no chance of Verstappen ever getting any younger than Barrichello, is there?
Not really, John. So Damon Hill retired from this Grand Prix with a gearbox problem, John.
That's unusual. I mean, Williams, their gearbox has been pretty well bulletproof. So, well, who would have actually thought of them before the Grand Prix season started that you would have seen Senna not score points in either Grand Prix, and in fact both Williams not finish in the second Grand Prix.
Exactly, and to correct that, I mean, Damon retired from transmission problems, John, and they did have problems with the diff on Thursday and Friday, so maybe it's not the gearbox but the differential. While Brundle goes into the pits for a tire stop. So Martin Brundle, the sole remaining McLaren. And John, the good thing, and that's a set of brand new tires going onto that car.
Well, they had a few spare sets lying around, and those are probably B compound.
And there's a second place man, Gerhard Berger. Jean Alesi at home. Well, fact, you know what you think when you're at home.
Well, in fact, Jean Alesi is not at home. He's back in Italy working for Rai TV doing a commentary on this Grand Prix, but metaphorically he is back at home.
.55 seconds, the gap between Gerhard Berger and Michael Schumacher. So basically, John, I think if we turn this camera around, we should see a glimpse of Michael Schumacher not before too long. And as in Brazil, he's nearly got the whole field lapped.
And that's not really any pressure at all. He's had such an advantage throughout the Grand Prix. Well, I have to say, the prospects for the rest of the year are looking better and better. And if Schumacher can remain in the lead of this Grand Prix, take another 10 points, that certainly is a gauntlet being thrown down to Williams principally. McLaren, who are hoping by the time they get to Europe that further developments of the Peugeot V10 engine will see them being able to run more competitively. And of course, at Italy in San Marino, well, Ferrari are always capable of having a very strong performance in front of their home crowd. Disappointment in that Jean Alesi will not be in that car. But Laurini's performance here, and given a bit more time with the team and understanding of the car, will support Berger very strongly indeed.
With 29 laps to go, the gap we just saw between Schumacher and Berger, 52 seconds, so it'll hover around the 50-55 second mark. And there is the other Benetton in the pits, Jos Verstappen. and that is his second career pit stop.
Gunn having a problem with the right front.
And John, there's a lot of fuel going in that car. And
well, it's a one-stop race for Verstappen. That appears to have been predetermined strategy. And in his case, I think probably...
Oh, yes!
Well, brand new tyres, keep the engine running.
Oh, that's...
Is it buried or not? He's certainly, I think the bottom of the car is beached. And you see, yes, indeed, the underbody of the car is keeping the wheels out of contact. And look at this, look at the joy on one Ferrari engineer's face. And that is really, really disappointing. Well, Verstappen has made an unforced error. He had a good pit stop, a good strategy, in fact, for Verstappen, one stop. And here we see it again in replay. Just comes out of the pits, anxious to get ahead of the Sauber, and all of a sudden going backwards into the gravel trap. And I can well imagine the disappointment, frustration, and in fact he's got to face now the wrath of his team as he walks back to the pits. There is his team boss expressing his emotions quite clearly. Flavio Briatore disbelieving, and maybe Verstappen deciding, well, I'll walk backwards to the pits rather than forwards. I think what's happening is the marshals are saying, listen, this is not the part of the track you should try and get across, find a safer part.
So Frentzen in the points, and let's not forget Heinz-Harald Frentzen in only his second Grand Prix for the Sauber team.
The Saubers have been disappointing this afternoon. They've not really featured in certainly performance terms. And I would have thought it, with that Ilmor Mercedes V10 engine, certainly I consider a very, very powerful engine indeed. The Sauber team not making, in my view, the best use of that power. Berger just loves that, doesn't he? I mean, that's going up to what, 18 zillion revs now. Let's see if experience can get Berger through the first corner safely. Yes, prudence is more evident.
And race leader Michael Schumacher is right behind him.
Well, is Berger going to be a gentleman and let the race leader put a lap on the second place man?
Well, I think we both know the answer, John. Again, Berger having a lot of understeer on the fresh set of tyres.
Well, also remember there's a bit more fuel in the car as well. Well, two Teutonic heads on the racetrack at the same time. Virtually a lap between them. And I think Michael Schumacher would be better advised, just let Berger go on and do what he wants to do. He's no threat to you. That's the advantage you have. It is a lap, and unless you can find a way of overtaking cleanly and without jeopardizing, look at the wobble Berger had coming through Mike Knight corner. There's nothing for Schumacher to benefit or gain from by trying to put a lap on the second place man.
And that's the difference we see with Barrichello now between Gerhard Berger and Michael Schumacher. So Berger's got to go past Barrichello first, and Barrichello some 8 seconds in front of him. Then it's Martin Brundle, Christian Fittipaldi and Heinz-Harald Frentzen completing the top 6. And there's the rest of the runners. So, well, Jos Verstappen walks back to the pits. Rubens Barrichello is in second, John.
That's an amazing performance, and Barrichello has driven hard, hard, hard throughout this Grand Prix.
There we see Rubens Barrichello currently in second position 4th position in Brazil was his best result ever, and currently running second with the Jordan Hart. And well, one of Eddie's cars has never finished second either in the Grand Prix.
That's true, and well, let's not anticipate. We saw what happened last year back at Donington when Barrichello had a podium position all ready waiting for him, and disappointment in the closing laps. And a very, very, I would say, feisty drive from young Rubens Barrichello. And drives like that are not going to go unnoticed by competitive teams. And, well, Eddie Jordan delighted in the knowledge that he has him firmly under lock and key. And an asset like that is not one that you would want to give up, let alone lose.
There's the gap, 7 seconds between Rubens Barrichello in second and Gerhard Berger in third. And we are in the latter part of this race, John, and if Barrichello can run till the end, I think we're going to see some pretty good racing between the Austrian and the Brazilian.
Well, Berger does have the advantage of having fresh tyres, and I would expect to see Berger carve into that advantage Barrichello has. Jean Todt on pit wall, masterminding their particular strategy. I think the strategy is Gerhard, just get on and catch up Barrichello.
Well, he is catching Barrichello fairly rapidly at the moment.
Well, he has him in sight. No, that's in fact the Sauber, but it'll be very soon that he will have him in sight. There he is. That's the length, some 400 meters that straight.
There's 21 laps to go by the time we cross start finish, so everything is possible, I suppose.
Well, certainly there's enough time for Berger to mount an attack on Barrichello. Whether he'll have any success, we've seen that Martin Brundle failed in his attempt to wrestle position away from Barrichello. Berger definitely the harder man of the two in terms of experience and aggression, plus he's got the tyre to carry him through. 6.28 seconds. So we're looking to see whether that's going to be reduced at the end of this 63rd lap.
Here we see Berger now has got to find a quick way past Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Sauber Mercedes. Well, 5.7 seconds. It's closing very rapidly indeed.
Well, that's half a second on the last lap to Berger's advantage. I don't see Frentzen being a problem particularly. But Barrichello really outstanding in this Grand Prix. Wise enough to see danger in the first corner on the first lap. Threaded his way through cleanly. And it's, you know, such an advantage when you can get with the leading bunch on those opening laps. You can build yourself a cushion, also a platform to attack from. And Barrichello has done a superb job to date. And equally the Jordan team have done and played their part in getting him in and out of the pits cleanly and efficiently.
Well, for the second time this year, there's a Jordan Hart in a points scoring position. And also Ferrari, John. Michael Schumacher is leading. Michael Schumacher is probably going to win his 4th Grand Prix in his career. But then Ferrari's got Jean Alesi on the rostrum in Brazil, and it looks very much like Gerhard Berger is going to end up on the rostrum here.
Yeah, and he would like a little bit more help. Well, Frentzen now pulled over to the right, let Berger through, but there was a challenge from Frentzen into the hairpin at the end of the straight. Berger charging from third, looking for second place. In time, in terms of time and laps, he has got the time. Well, I'm looking forward to the battle when it is joined, because Barrichello, this is the highest he's run in a Grand Prix, and he ain't going to give that away.
Schumacher trying to pass Frentzen. And is he going to get? And there is Rubens Barrichello, his last pit stop, and he has stalled the engine. He's got to start the engine, and that is disastrous for young Rubens. The engine's fired up, and has he lost third place as well, or has he just lost second place?
Well, again, maybe the heat of the moment. It's very easy with a modern engine. It revs so freely. The revs go up and down so quickly. But that has certainly cost him his second place. The pit stop and alone would have done that, but it was necessary because the speed at which Berger was hunting him down, it was inevitable. But third place now in serious jeopardy. And we're going to have to wait until this lap's completed. We'll hopefully find out where, in fact, Rubens has dropped back into.
And then Rubens, got to wait and see. Ah, well, he's back to fourth position. Martin Brundle only 4.7 seconds behind Gerhard Berger. And, well, is he the master that's going to end up in second place?
Well, one thing's for sure, Martin Brundle is a long way ahead of Rubens Barrichello. And we saw in the early part of the race that Brundle fought vainly to pass Barrichello. And I think that looks pretty ominous that the top three, Schumacher, Berger and Brundle, that's how it's going to stay now until the end.
Well, Brundle soldiers on, and the Peugeot engineers will be very happy. And there we see the gap, 5.1 seconds. Martin fallen back, but well, maybe that Sauber had something to do with it. Peugeot will learn a lot from this, John, won't they?
They wanted to learn a lot in Brazil. They didn't have that chance. They certainly will learn a considerable amount this afternoon. And the work that is going on with Peugeot and more developments. And certainly I would anticipate when we get to Europe that they can afford to be maybe a little bit more adventurous in their approach to the development of the A6 and further developments of the V10 Peugeot engine. These two initial Grand Prix, they're a long way from base. The objective is, I think, to finish.
Gerhard taking a chance there on fellow Austrian Roland Ratzenberger in passing him. And, well, he succeeded, but it was a brave move by Gerhard, I must say.
Gerhard's never been short on bravery. At times it looks a lot worse from our camera position. The driver obviously has got a much clearer view and he can anticipate things much more so than what we see on our screens.
Oh, that gap still. Oh, and there's Minardi off.
Well, I think it's
Pierluigi Martini.
Yeah, looks like it, and that's on the outward curve. And yes, Martini and the car are going to be dragged away out of the gravel beds to safety behind the barriers.
Minardi, John, the team that didn't really show the promise here it showed in Brazil, especially in the untimed sessions, and they struggled a bit.
They certainly have, and when you consider that the TI circuit is a much smoother circuit, one that would have anticipated an even stronger showing. It didn't come, and they were strong tail-end runners, I think is the best way to describe Minardi this weekend.
There we see the top four, top six with two footworks in the top six. Christian Fittipaldi, Gianni Morbidelli. Then it's Frentzen, Wendlinger, Alboreto, Martini and Comas. Well, and it wasn't Martini anymore because he is walking back to the pits.
Oh, former teammates now in different cars. but there is a lap between Michael Schumacher, the race leader, and Martin Brundle in third place.
Yeah, the gap between Berger and Brundle, 3.7 seconds. And the leader of the race caught in the battle for second place. And that's the top three on your screen. Now, would Schumacher get out of the way for Brundle, or at least sort of make sure he does not get involved in any fighting with Martin Brundle, John?
It's a bit of a dilemma. He doesn't really want to have to work to pass Berger, but he's going to get pressure from behind from Martin Brundle, because Brundle's is going to want to get at Berger to attack for second place. So it may be that Schumacher decides the most prudent thing to do is let Brundle unlap himself and go and attack Berger. In fact, from Schumacher's point of view, it may be the safest play all round.
Riding with race leader Michael Schumacher, the man that made that stunning debut in a Jordan in Spa. And talking about Jordan, there's one. In fourth place, yet again, Rubens Barrichello.
And that's a little car also that's been looking very good in the part of the circuit that's been giving most teams major problems. And the gap, unfortunately, now too large, with the time remaining for Barrichello to latch onto the tail of Martin Brundle. Great disappointment indeed in that stalled engine, as we have mentioned on a number of occasions. It's so easy to win or lose a place during a pit stop.
Brundle, well, it's a 10th here, a 10th there, and I don't think it's enough to get close to Gerhard, and of course then he's going to pass him as well.
The fifth place man, Christian Fittipaldi, another car engine combination that is going to give Morbidelli and Fittipaldi, I think, a pretty good season.
And we see the Lotus of Johnny Herbert. And basically, John, they can't get that chassis to work anymore. It's out of date, off the pace, and, well, they're all waiting for the 109.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is they don't know what the problem is with the current car. And obviously, Johnny Herbert, with all speculation, and Brundle into the pits.
Is that the end of Martin Brundle? It looks like it. A very disappointed Martin Brundle. Whoa, that says it all, John.
Well, there's no doubt at all when Brundle came into the pit lane, he wasn't coming in for a stop, and something fairly major has occurred. And he would have said on the radio, "Forget it, guys. My afternoon is over." Well, he did a pretty good job for McLaren and for Peugeot.
I mean, and Martin justifying his place in the McLaren team.
I think he's done a very good job. Difficult initial Grand Prix, of course. Not much time with the team and the car. And Ron Dennis in the garage to find out what was the cause of that retirement.
So Martin Brundle out of the race. That means that Rubens Barrichello is up to third position. Christian Fittipaldi is fourth. And in fifth position, Gianni Morbidelli. While sixth now is Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Well, that's a little bit of a release of distraction, I would say, for Schumacher. With the retirement of Martin Brundle, he's got nobody to watch in his mirrors. He can allow Berger to do whatever he wants, and in fact the gap seems to be reducing marginally. Fittipaldi fourth, Morbidelli in the second, footwork fifth, and Frentzen into the points for the second time for the Sauber team. Oh, and there Morbidelli looks like he's about to have an early end to his Grand Prix. That looks pretty serious. Certainly, again, oil blowing out as the car enters the corner off the throttle. And I would suggest that that's an HB which is about to seriously launch itself. And Morbidelli comes from a family of engineers, and I wonder why he's not sensing something disastrous is about to happen. Oh, and there it is. That's the oil that, or fluid, whatever it was, that was leaching from some part of that unit onto the rear tyres.
So the end for Gianni Morbidelli. This could be interesting, John, the end of the race. So now Frentzen moves into 5th position. And there we see it again. Well, it doesn't want to go no further.
No, now they've got to get the car again pulled away to the safety of the barriers and waved yellow flags down at Atwood Curve. And just really Schumacher now just marching time against the pace of Gerhard Berger in 2nd place.
And Martin Brundle, apparently, John, the message comes back, it's an overheating problem.
Well, that was a problem that Mika Häkkinen had in the Brazil Grand Prix. Everything literally shut down, and when the car then had cooled down, they literally were able to go and start it up again. So a lot of heat from the Peugeot engine. That, oh, and who is that? Is that? Oh, it's not Barrichello, and one
That's
of the
Michele Alboreto in the other Minardi.
with the Sauber.
And is that Frentzen or is that Karl Wendlinger to our right? Well, that is Rubens Barrichello, currently in 3rd position, and there's all sorts of things happening here in Ida. That is Michele Alboreto trying to get out of his car. And oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, we've seen Morbidelli, we've seen the Sauber of Karl Wendlinger involved in this incident. And Wendlinger, not a happy man. What's happened?
Well, Michele's going to take a dive down the inside. Wendlinger deciding no way. And oh, you can see, well, I have to say the blame for that one lies squarely with Michele Alboreto. He wasn't far enough up to commit himself to that degree. Wendlinger could effectively have avoided it by not turning across the front of Alboreto. But it was undoubtedly Alboreto's do-or-die effort to wrestle a place from Wendlinger that was the result of that incident.
The Sauber team and the race leader, Michael Schumacher. Well, and the only thing he does now, John, is just drive around, make sure he doesn't get too far behind Berger, and all the rest take care of themselves.
Well, my view is that Michael Schumacher is just running at the pace of Gerhard Berger. He doesn't need to go any quicker. Berger safely, securely in 2nd place with Barrichello some 20 seconds or so behind. He's not under threat from Barrichello. And I would think that Schumacher very happy to stay where he is.
Heinz-Harald Frentzen. John, if he stays where he is, he's going to score points in only his 2nd Grand Prix. Points for Sauber. He must be a happy man then.
Yes, I think he will be quite pleased to be in the points, but having watched the testing performance over the winter of Sauber, to me they look to be the most likely team outside of the top 4 to challenge from that position. Here this weekend they've not challenged from that position. What they've done is achieved a points position from reliability and from a fine effort so far by Frentzen, but I think they have to do better.
Maybe when they come back to Europe and go to places they know they'll get closer to the ultimate pace.
Yes, I think that's a story that everybody could also give. It's a strange circuit to everybody, so you know you can't today pick and choose where you can give a good, strong performance. It's got to be strong everywhere.
There's Christian Fittipaldi, who is not that far ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. There we see Frentzen in the background with 9 laps to go. So could Frentzen move on and try and take a 4th position away from Christian Fittipaldi? Fittipaldi knows probably what happened to teammate Gianni Morbidelli. Well, he knows he's retired anyway, and might just want to make it to the end.
Well, I'm sure the control from within Arrows Grand Prix International will tell Fittipaldi what they would expect him to do. He's got the threat of Frentzen from behind. He's nowhere near close enough to challenge for improvement in position. So it's really this, it's into the countdown now in the remaining laps of this inaugural Pacific Grand Prix. The 2 Brazilians, Rubens Barrichello 3rd, Christian Fittipaldi 4th. Second place man Gerhard Berger follows some 3 seconds or more, in fact it is now more, by Michael Schumacher.
Well, John, you soldier on like Eric Comas did. There we see him go, and he is in the points.
Well, that'll be delight for Gerard Larousse and Patrick Tambay.
And Robin Hurt. And probably Eric Comas himself as well. There's Rubens Barrichello again. And the gap between Berger and Barrichello, 18 seconds. That's, I think Rubens just wants to finish this race and get 3rd position. And a good performance by Rubens, but also Eddie Jordan has not had the happiest of years. 2 years ago, last year, a lot of drivers coming in and out of the team. And this year, with Eddie Irvine and Rubens Barrichello, he thought 2 young chargers. Well, Irvine suspended for the moment, but Rubens taking over that lead role immediately.
Well, the one thing that the Jordan team in its history had not attained was continuity. And for the first time in '94, they have continuity of drivers and continuity of engine supply. And the value of that is, well, you can't speak of it highly enough. So Barrichello in his 2nd year with the team, Brian Hart supplying exclusively his V10 engine to the team for the 2nd year. All that is a part of the building process, and there is no shortcut to continuity.
And Eddie Irvine really watching the race at home, thinking, well, I should have been there. Well, this man is there, Michael Schumacher, and he's leading the Pacific Grand Prix. And bar mechanical failure, 6 laps to go. I think we're looking at a man who's won 2 races on the trot. And I must say that it is very good from Benetton, for Benetton, teamwork, and also a happy present for the sponsor.
Well, it's been a superb year so far for Benetton. They did all their homework. They brought out their '94 car before all other competitors. They got the testing in. They had the setback, of course, when JJ later had that massive testing accident at Silverstone, drafting in Jos Verstappen, and through no fault of his own, that incident in Brazil took him out. The responsibility for his retirement here in the TI circuit does lie in Verstappen's hands. And I think now that after 2 race performances, the team will be very keen to see JJ return to them and to build up the strength and depth that a team will look for when it comes to scoring points in the Constructors' Championships.
Which they will be leading at the moment. But it's early days, John. As you said, there's 140 points to be scored in the remaining races of the season. There's 2 weeks for Imola, and well, in Imola, the McLaren of the Williams went very well a couple of months ago.
Well, undoubtedly Imola will represent a different challenge to everybody. It is one of a number of out-and-out power circuits. And, well, I have to say I've been very impressed and not a little surprised by the power and the performance from this new Ford Zetec R engine, and also, for that matter, for the reliability. For a brand new engine to win its first Grand Prix is a very fine achievement, and in fact Cosworth, who make the engine on behalf of Ford, have been guilty of that in the past. And if you remember back all the way to the 60s when the first DFV appeared, it also won its first Grand Prix.
And that went on to be one of the all-time great Formula One engines, or racing engines in general.
Well, it still is, because it's still a great engine in Formula 3000.
Rubens, who had a learning year in Formula One yet last year with Eddie Jordan, and the team gelled well together. He loves working with Gary Anderson, and Gary loves working with Rubens.
Well, the guy is an outstanding racing driver. For someone so young, he's got the head of an old man, and I expect, as does Jordan, that their year is going to be productive. And certainly, as you say, in 92 and 93, lean years in terms of points and results for the Jordan team. But coming back to continuity, that's what it's all down to. Well, the Sassel, Jordan, Hart team members sitting back watching the monitor, their work complete for this afternoon, and enjoying the prospect of seeing their little hero up on the podium.
Well, and if it stays like this, Benetton would lead the Constructors' Championship quite handsomely by 10 points over Ferrari. And then in third position, it's Jordan, John.
Yes, and I think whereabouts does Barrichello feature in the points?
Well, he's got 3 points from Brazil, plus 6 is 9. Plus 4 is 7. So he'll be second in the championship.
That's not bad, is it?
It's not bad. Not bad at all. That is very good prospects for the Jordan team and Rubens Barrichello. Well, we are going to have a look at the positions after 80 laps. 2 laps to go. There we see Barrichello and Fittipaldi both a lap down, and they're upholding the Brazilian honor at the moment. 5th and 6th, Frentzen and Comas. But for the second race in succession, also Barrichello, the first Brazilian driver home. Now, he had tears in his eyes, John, when he finished 4th. And what's going to happen when he does finish on the rostrum? Well, there's one happy man in Michael Schumacher. I think there's a very relieved man in Gerhard Berger. And who knows what Barrichello's going to do?
Well, I think we're going to see 3 drivers on a podium who actually will show some joy for being up there.
Some joy. Starting his last lap is Michael Schumacher. Position 1 plus 74, nearly 75 seconds. Well, you can see the gap, and unless that Benetton stops in the next 3 kilometers, well, Michael Schumacher has won his second Grand Prix in succession, brings his total points to 20, and Gerhard Berger finishes in second position. 13 points is the lead Michael Schumacher will have in the World Championship, and he has it over Rubens Barrichello, who then is in second position. Damon Hill and Gerhard Berger will share third place, but what a start to the season, John. Who would have thought this?
Well, I always thought this Grand Prix would be a lottery. It has turned out to be the case, but certainly what I didn't anticipate was that Damon Hill and Ayrton Senna would not finish the Grand Prix. And in the case of Senna, it would end as dramatically at the first corner of the first lap as it did.
Well, we know that. Position 1 for Schumacher. There he comes. This can't go wrong. The checkered flag is out. Michael Schumacher wins the Pacific Grand Prix. And oh boy, what a season are we going to have in Formula 1 this year.
Look at that. Flavio Briatore and Joan de Villenplant, he is the team manager at Benetton. And they are truly, truly delighted. The dream start to the season is a reality. And, well, a very popular result, I'm sure, in many quarters. The prospect at the start of the year of utter domination by Williams, Renault and Senna was something that would not necessarily have been good for Formula 1. Well, one thing's for sure, that those three parties are now going to have to work very hard indeed to come to terms and to have any chance of clawing back that 20-point advantage. That's a pretty massive advantage. Although we're still very early into the year, only 2 races out of 16, nonetheless, it's going to be competitive to the end.
Well, John, after Brazil, Schumacher said, well, whatever it is, it's plus 10. And I'm sure he'll say it's plus 20 now. And that's plus 20 to Ayrton Senna, but plus 13 for second place in the championship, Rubens Barrichello. They're very happy, Jean Todt and Nicola Larini. Larini, of course, not very happy with his own result, but Gerhard Berger finished in second position. And that's a second and third for Ferrari, and Jean Todt can be happy with that.
They've got a lot of work to do in terms of overall performance, and there's the man in third place for the first time in his career. And look at he's just unbounded. Absolutely delighted. Look at that. Well, we know how joyous Michael Schumacher is on the podium. He's going to be challenged, I think, by Rubens Barrichello, and also, obviously, for the Jordan team, it's their first opportunity to get on the podium. Barrichello second in the Drivers' World Championship. A fine achievement indeed.
There's Christian Fittipaldi, the man that finished fourth, and that equals Christian's best result in Formula 1. Or actually, it is Christian's best result in Formula 1.
Well, now there'll be the rush to the podium, and Gerhard Berger, who's sort of gone a little bit unmentioned, is I'm sure going to be delighted to climb up. It's a long time since he's seen a podium.
I mean, John, even from that long way back, you could see the smile on all Jordan personnel, and I think the whole of the Jordan crew will have a drink or two tonight.
I think there'll be a few hangovers on the way home. I don't know whether there's very much Guinness or Irish whiskey on board the flights back to the UK, but whatever there is, it'll probably be Bailey's or something like that. Well, Berger making his way down to Parc Fermé. The car will be taken in, and the scrutineers then will go over it with a fine-tooth comb to ensure its eligibility.
There's the results. First and second, Schumacher and Berger. And then it's Barrichello and Christian Fittipaldi. Hans-Harald Frensen, congratulations on your first points. And Eric Comas, the first points for LaRousse of the 1994 season. Johnny Herbert again finishing in 7th position. As in Brazil, 8th Pedro Lamy, 9th Oliver Pennis. And that 7th position for Johnny Herbert is more a case of just going round and round than being ultimately quick. Well, John, who's going to jump the highest? Who's going to be the happiest? I mean, there's a happy winner, Michael Schumacher.
And Eddie Jordan showing his joy and pleasure. And a very, very fine drive by all three podium winners. Michael Schumacher again, delighted.
And now for the winning constructor.
The understatement of the year.
Well, it's great to see it. And Rubens Barrichello, it's the first time he's been on a podium, and he just can't control his emotions. And, well, let's see more of it.
Well, that's the prize, first prize being given to Michael Schumacher. And he just said, well, another 10 points in the bag. Flavio Briatore on the left, on the far left that is, and in red on the left it's Berger, and on the right Rubens Barrichello, who kept kicking the rostrum.
He's so excited, he just can't contain his emotions. And Berger equally pleased. A long time for Berger. He's had rotten luck since he's been at Ferrari, and maybe this is now the path back. And look at Barrichello, look. So now it's the Moet Chandon, the champagne battle. Berger exits fast right now, and Barrichello deciding the best place. Briatore deserving of his champagne shower.
Let's not forget, John, that Gerhard Berger won his first Grand Prix for the Benetton team, and he knows Flavio pretty well.
Sure does. Well, that's what Formula One should be about. This is what public want to see. I was going to say 3 young men, certainly 2 young men and one not quite so young, but as one in their joy after a hard afternoon's work.
And compliments to all 3. I mean, that all 3 drove very, very well indeed.
And to the teams, the respective teams, it was going to be an opportunity for everybody to take advantage of a new venue, a new circuit. Benetton, Ferrari and Jordan are the 3 teams that have scored and succeeded here this afternoon.
There we see the Drivers' World Championship. Schumacher 20 points, Barrichello 7, Hill 6, Berger 6, Alesi 4 and Fittipaldi 3. Then it's Katayama and Frenzen on 2 and Wendlinger and Comas on 1 point. That's the situation on the drivers' front. Let's have a look at the situation on the constructors' front, where Benetton is leading by a long, long way.
Well, we're into the interview rooms, and after all that champagne, a little bit more composure. And the first thing you want to do is get lots of water into you, because it's a physically demanding and tiring circuit, and dehydration would have been fairly considerable. And taking a mouthful of champagne in that condition, it goes straight into your bloodstream.
Again. Questions in German afterwards. Same for you, Gerhard, and from Portuguese for you.
Well, Martin Whittaker explaining to the drivers what the procedure is going to be.
And Gerhard always ready with a little joke.
Well, Gerhard probably got a stink bomb on his race suit just to ensure that the thing is a memorable occasion.
Constructors' Championship then. 20 points for Benetton, 10 for Ferrari, 7 for Jordan. Williams is 6th, then Sauber, Footwork and Tyrrell. So that is the situation with the constructors. While the Japanese spectators are getting the bus back home, because that is the only way you can get to this Tanaka International Racetrack. This is the final result. Roland Ratzenberger bringing home the Simtek, 5 laps down, but bringing it home. And there, Frentzen, Comas, Herbert.
Was the C's better? The C's were better for 5 laps and then
Michael.
10 worse than the B's.
Michael, congratulations. This really has been a dream start to the season. 2 wins out of 2 races. How did it go today?
I mean, that is actually absolutely right. These 2 wins, I wouldn't believe at all if anybody would tell me this before the season. The race went on, I mean, after the start very well. I did have no trouble with the car. That was fantastic. I wasn't pushed very hard from anybody at this time, so I could take it very easy with the tyres, with the car, and could run the race home. That's the only intention I had after the start. But the good point is that we improved our starts, because in Brazil they weren't too good, and we worked on all the areas where we were missing something. And this is a fantastic team effort, and they have done a brilliant job.
How do you do it? You look terribly relaxed. This was a really punishing race. It was long, running temperatures of 25 degrees.
I mean, I have to say, for me, it wasn't so hard. I didn't have to push so hard. I did probably push 90% throughout two-thirds of the race. But the last third of the race, especially when I was behind Gerhard, I just watched out. I saw Barrichello in front of him, and I thought, I want to stay close to him and see the fight at the end. But then Barrichello had to make a pit stop, and I just could take it easy.
Well, turning to you, Gerhard, we didn't see much of you last season. Ferrari on the podium in the first 2 races this year must be a satisfying result for you and the team.
Yeah, sure. It's a nice result, but we have a lot of work in front of us, because, I mean, I had to push the first 3/4 of a race, because I was fighting with Barrichello. I was also Brandl was a time there. Hakkinen was just in front, Hill. So I really had to push the first 3/4. But I mean, there's just no way to go quicker with our car in the moment, and we have to improve our car. And then I hope it comes some more results like today. But I'm very happy. I'm happy for the team, because they are working very, very hard, and I need it also. So I'm happy day today.
Rubens, your first top 3 finish. Great result for you and the Jordan team. And it now puts you into 2nd in the World Championship.
Well, what can I say? I'm really pleased for me and for the team. Our tactics work quite good, because we race on Bs for 2 runs, and then for the last run we put the C tires, and it went very well. I just had a problem on the last pit stop, because the engine died, and I was 4th. I said, I can't believe that, you know, it's not today that I'm going to the podium. But suddenly I saw Brando stopping, and, you know, I'm just really, really pleased for me and for the team, because they've done a really good job.
Well, congratulations to all 3 of you. And now, if I can get your attention, Michael, some words in German.
Some words in German.
Well, great to see 3 people who enjoy being on a podium, and for Schumacher, the dream start to the season. For Gerhard Berger, possibly the way back, and for Rubens Barrichello, well, the future.
Well, this was a sensational Grand Prix in Japan, the Pacific Grand Prix at Ida. Don't forget to watch Eurosport's Formula One Grand Prix magazine on Wednesday evening. And John Watson and Allard Kalf say thank you very much, and we will see you from Imola, where we'll give you qualifying, warm-up and race, of course, live here on Eurosport. Thank you very much for getting up early. Thank you very much for watching. See you from Imola. Bye for now.